Okay, all right. Welcome everyone to the session on professional writing. So I have changed. Good evening, Disha. Um, I have changed the way I have been doing this session from how it happened last time and all. A little bit of it, because what I have realized is since I was talking too much about the techniques in the first few sessions for writing, and then I have never gotten any real time to discuss the professional writing spaces as such. So instead, what I've decided this time is that we will be talking about all these techniques, strategies, etc. But what we'll do is we'll also alongside discuss um, the major write-ups that we consider as professional writing, right? So from the beginning itself, we'll look at that as well, so that as long as you attend these sessions, you get something out of it rather than just strategies and techniques. I mean, you will know them, but you should also know how to use them in the real write-ups. So for that matter, I've changed it a little bit. Um, so for professional writing, how will this class run? Like the name suggests, it's a tutorial, right? So which means it's going to have both parts of it, maybe say in the beginning of it as a little bit of knowledge gaining sessions, wherein I'll talk a bit about these things, what professional writing is and what the specific kind of document we are going to discuss and all that. And some part of it is also going to be on you doing the work. That is, you will have activities, right? So you are going to actually write down things, whether that's letters or whether that's report or email. Sometime later in the sessions, we'll also discuss how we can write a presentation manuscript, right? So these days, all of us make a lot of presentations, or we are required to make it. It's a part and parcel of most of our workplace communication as well as otherwise, right? So one method to do that is also to have a manuscript ready. It's a very successful method, but a lot of people do not understand how to do that. So sometime during the tutorials, one part of it will be also to write on these presentation manuscripts. This is some things that have changed from last time to be more current on the topic of professional writing, right? So yes, tutorial mode, which means you're going to hear a few things, you will see a demo of something, and then you're going to work out on that, right? Whatever you're writing, for that matter, I will look into it at a later stage, but what I'll also make sure is that we keep looking at them while you're writing, right? So at least the last 5-10 minutes, we'll check on what you people have written so that you can also see for what you should improve. Because giving you written feedback of what you have written may not be a possibility every time. So I'll try and see if the evaluation part is more real time and continuous for these sessions, right? You will be writing, I mean, you will get an access to the peer deck file. So you can write it online. What you write would definitely be saved with me. In case you want to keep a record of those things, you may take screenshots or whatever you usually do for that. So that is one part. And if you require additional feedback on what you're writing, then you will have to write to me in person. Whenever it is necessary and required, I'll make sure that everybody who joins gets it. Okay. And if you're serious about this, so today some of you might have just joined to see what is going on, right? One class or so will definitely not tell you what exactly a whole session is going to do with. But in case you are somebody who's decided to stay for a longer time, you will see those changes. And I request people that you be a part of it for a longer time so that you actually get the benefits of this. Okay, 1 or 2 classes may not help. And be regular, because you miss one class and of course you can look at the recording, but what you miss is the real time practice, right? So we usually do not get the time to take up what has been done already. So for that matter, it's good that you can make it to the live classes, right? Okay, so that's about how we are going to do the sessions. Now for today, because this is the introductory class. Last week we couldn't do it because of some technical glitches, but no problem. We usually have about 13 to 14 weeks for these sessions, so it doesn't matter. We'll cover up. We'll begin with some introductory aspects of professional writing, right? So just like telling you what it means. Most of you would already know what it is. I'll just share those slides with you for your reference. Just give me a moment. Just confirm with me if you're able to see the screen, okay? Okay. It's only changed for me. Okay, let's. You can see, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Um, Right. So to start off with, what does it mean, right? There are different understanding of what professional writing means for different people. Some would tell you that, see, any form of writing which follows some kind of conventions and standards is what is professional in nature. That's also a right definition, or that's also the right way to understand it. But for our purpose, what we understand by professional writing will definitely involve any kind of documents that are produced at a workplace or a professional setting, right? Whatever your professional spaces, whichever domain of the profession you work for, any written communication records that are produced in a workplace or a professional setting is considered as professional writing, right? While the other definition that anything that is more standardized and follows the convention is professional writing is true, it is not very different from what our understanding of writing in professional spaces or workplaces is, right? So we know, like if we, for example, you talk about something like an email or you talk about a memo or a circular, we know that these are mostly things that are written in workplaces, right? It's not like we have a different place to do that. So both of these definitions, they, in fact, they feed into each other. They're not telling you anything different, right? In fact, what is considered as the standard definition, which is usage of or writing based on certain standards and convention, is a part of professional writing here as well. Okay. So documents like we mentioned, reports or memos or emails, proposals includes your business proposals or reports that you generally write at workplaces, right? Presentations, both your business presentations and other forms of presentations, right? All of them become a part of professional writing. Presentations, how do they become part of professional writing? You need to have a good script for any presentation, right? If you have to deliver a good presentation in front of anyone, the first and foremost thing that you require is a good script. And this script is an actually written script. A lot of people do not follow this point. They think, it's something that is mentally organized and people just come over and make a sort of speech and go. But even to make that speech, before we do that, what do you actually do? You need to write down that thing, right? Writing gives you some sort of organization. It helps you organize your thoughts properly. Hence, even to make a business presentation or an academic presentation, the first and foremost thing that you should be doing is writing down a script of what you want to talk to people, right? So manuscript writing in presentation also is counted as a part of professional writing, right? And no matter how seasoned you are, okay, by which I mean, no matter how long you have been doing these things, every time you do a presentation, every time you write a manual, every time you have to write a business proposal or any other kind of research proposals or email or anything, you need to go down that procedure of seeing whether you have followed all the steps that is required and important in writing a good piece of email or manual or so on and so forth, right? This is an important part. One needs to look into this every time you're writing. It's not a one-time business. Every form of writing, every time it is written, you need to look at it, you need to revise it, you need to edit it. Okay, only then you're able to do that properly. Okay, so some characteristics that you can generally align with professional writing would be these, right? Clarity, accuracy, conciseness, and adherence to specific conventions and standards. Okay, all of these would be essentially the characteristics or features of all forms of professional writing. All of this is applicable to whether you're writing emails, whether you're writing proposals or reports, or so on and so forth, right? These are the features around which your writing would be seen as professional. So, for example, you lack clarity in your writing, it's an unprofessional writing. There's no accuracy to how you have written things. Again, this becomes unprofessional, right? Conciseness, again, is a very important feature. If it is not concise, you're going on writing long emails. Okay, that is again considered thoroughly unprofessional, right? You have not followed the convention and standards of writing a professional email again. All of this then guides you to write a better professional piece, right? What are some of the fundamental differences between professional writing and literary writing? The ones that you see here. The basic difference that you need to keep in mind. There are few written on the screen. You can read them or maybe you can find them as you get these slides. But keep in mind the basic difference between these two, that would be that one uses a very formal style. Which one uses a formal style? No prize for guessing, it's professional writing, right? So all of the language, the style, the tone that you use in professional writing always remains formal. We'll discuss at length on these things. You know, what are aspects of formality when it comes to professional writing? What are the things that you should keep in mind so that you don't run into the risk of sounding informal while you write in the professional spaces? So basic difference between literary writing and professional would be that one is specifically written in a formal tone and language. The other one doesn't have any such rules, right? You can write in whatever way you want. You can use dialects, you can use creative language, figurative language on your own. So a lot of figures of speech or a lot of dialects, lot of slang, right? All of those things could be found in abundant in your literary writing. But none of these things are supposedly a good thing to be done in professional writing, right? And the reason being, this is the purpose of professional writing is that you communicate something to the next person in order for some action to be taken. So this is action oriented writing, right? You don't write something like an email, a professional email or a memo or something for no reason. There is some purpose behind it. It's a purpose driven writing. Hence the language you use also have to be direct. Okay, it cannot be figurative. The person who reads it should be able to understand every word that you're writing, right? But that's not the case with literary writing. Of course, it's a choice that you make, right? But in case of professional write-ups, most of the time it's not a choice, it's a compulsion. It's something that you're required to do. Hence, you keep the language clean. And by clean, we mean more direct, straightforward, and you keep it specific, right? You don't use a lot of vague language while you're addressing to somebody in a professional space. Okay, so all of this then becomes the differences between these two. Literary writing doesn't have to follow any of the rules as we mentioned here. It has its own methods, right? Like it will use a lot of complex sentences. There can be some ambiguity in the way they present ideas. Not everything written there is required to be understood by the person who's reading, right? It is genre based. It's also audience based, right? As in it is written for a certain target audience. Not everybody is required to read and understand that. Now, this is also a feature of professional writing, but some forms of professional writing, like say research paper. Research papers are not written for everybody, right? It's written for the domain specific people. But it is different from the literary writing in the sense that literary writing doesn't follow any rules to write. Research paper, even though it's not written for everyone, it still has to follow certain standards and conventions to be documented and published, right? So this forms the differences between these two. Now, this one we already did discuss, elements of professional writing. First one would be what? Clarity and conciseness. Clarity, everything should be clear, right? There should be no confusions and ambiguities about what is being said in the text. Conciseness, you need to keep it short, right? Say you're writing an email. Could you please try and guess and tell me what would be the expected length of a professional email? Anyone who wants to guess? We all write emails, right? What do you
Ma'am,
think would
around
be an
100
expected
words?
Ma'am, 250 characters.
250 characters? No.
Ma'am, I think 100 words.
100 words, yes. Somewhere between, okay, you could say somewhere between 100 to 120 words. Okay, some people are a little more stringent about it. Some would tell you only 80 to 100. Some are little more stringent. Someone would say 60 to 80 words. But these days, the standard practice usually is to keep it within 120 words. Okay, 120 words will account to say maximum 3 to 4 sentences. Okay, so you see how short it has to be. Now, these are professional emails I'm talking about, okay, not the ones that you send to your friends. I don't know who sends emails to friends now, but there was a time when we did not have all these messengers, right? These days, we are all flooded with all kinds of messengers, like say WhatsApp or whatever we use, right? But email was the beginning to all of these. So those were the times when people used to write emails to each other. So in the turn of, say, somewhere 10, 15 years back, emails became really professional. And once that started being the norm, it was very clearly established that none of the professional emails would exceed 3 to 4 sentences, which would be roughly 120 words. Okay, if I'm to talk in terms of words. Right. So this is what, now this doesn't mean that you write down the email and sit and count it, right? Have I exceeded 120 words? This is saying roughly 3 to 4 sentences. You keep to the point while you're writing. Don't write anything that is not relevant to the purpose of why you're writing that email, right? So this is on conciseness. And now this kind of template exists for everything. This is about email that I've just mentioned. Such kind of template would exist for reports. Same kind of conciseness and the length that's appreciated would exist for a report. That would be the case for memo. That would be the case for research papers. If you have ever submitted a research paper to the journal, you know, right? Some journals tell you not more than 7,000 words, and they mean it, right? Some would say not more than 2,000 words. Some would say not more than 5,000. It's different for different journals. But word limit or the length is something that is taken very seriously in professional writing. Okay. Second thing, audience awareness. This is a very, very important part because that is what will guide your language. That is what will help you decide on what kind of sentences can be used, what kind of words can be used, what kind of phrases can be used, what is the register and vocabulary you're allowed to use. All of this comes from your awareness of the audience. Who am I writing for? Okay. Whenever you're writing, the first question you have to ask yourself is also this: what is my purpose and who am I writing for? If you have the answer to these questions, then the first part, right, clarity and conciseness, this follows automatically. A lot of people who write badly, or people who do not have clear form of writing or conciseness in their writing is because of this. They miss out on the second point, audience awareness, right? Now, audience can be many, right? What are the usual kind of audience we have? Types of audience? Any idea? No? Do you want to guess? What do you think are the different kinds of audience we have?
Co-workers.
What is that? Sorry, I did not hear you properly.
The workers and the people in our professional space, like the boss, the
Haha,
co-workers.
yes. Okay. So you have a general audience and you have a specialized audience, right? Or what you also call as the custom audience. Custom audience would be who? Say somebody who's your team member, right? You work on a project and someone who's part of your team is a custom member, a specialized audience. Okay, somebody who knows the A to Z of the project you're working on. General audience would include who? The people to whom you're going to make a presentation, say the client, right? Someone that sort. So this is the first category. You can also have audience who's a neutral audience, right? So say, for example, you're a blogger. Your audience is a neutral audience, right? Apathetic audience, people who don't care. Now, these things are applicable for people who make presentations. You can have audience that is apathetic. What is apathetic? People who don't care, right? So you're making a presentation and there's nobody who's looking at you. No one cares. They're not creating any nuisance, but they're still not listening, right? Then there's another group of audience called the hostile or the unfriendly audience. These are the ones who not only not listen to you, but also create disturbances for you. So there are all kinds of audience, right? In professional setup, what you're unlikely to see are hostile and unfriendly audience because they're carefully chosen. It's not like an open place where you're going and giving presentation. Although maybe say if you're somebody who's delivering a talk somewhere, you may experience or you may come across such people as well. But in general, in professional writing, the kind of audience you have are either these specialized general audience or the neutral and apathetic audience, right? So while we're looking at the presentation skills part, we'll discuss a little more about that and how you organize your script. How can you modify and change your already written script based on who and how your audience responds to, right? So this is more about techniques than, writing by itself. Okay. So now, next thing, tone and style, right? Tone and style also very, very important as far as professional writing is concerned. Again, no prize for guessing. It needs to be formal. Both the style and the tone has to be formal. We'll see how you can make your writing formal in tone and style. There are different methods to do that. We'll discuss it while we take up the writing itself. Okay. Grammar and mechanics. These days, we have all kinds of tools, especially AI, which is helping you with the grammar and other aspects. But it's always nice that you have a hold on it because every time what you see may not be right or may not be context specific. In writing, the major aspect is that all you write has to be context specific. We haven't become so advanced to deal with those things, but until then we'll have to depend on our own skills of understanding how these mechanics work. Okay. Additional features for professional writing includes formatting and layout for sure. Document types, right? Document types would be what? All those things that we discussed, right? The memos, reports. So we need to first identify what you're writing, right? And then decide your language and your style according to what type of document you are going to write. Research and citation. Some kind of professional writing definitely requires research, like say report, proposals, right? All of them requires research and citation, right? Work cited. All of that is important there. Editing, proofreading is a must for all forms of writing. So you write a draft, never send your first draft. You're always going to work on second, third, fourth, depending on how long and how important your document is. Even if you're writing a simple email, it's always good to reread what you have written. Okay. Make necessary edits and then send it across to whoever you want, right? Professional ethics, right? Like, for example, no plagiarism, right? No copying, no stealing things. You need to respect intellectual property rights, which is why citation and research for things that requires so. Last is adaptability. What does adaptability refer to? You need to adapt to the medium in which you're writing. Sometimes you're going to write it on paper, right? Letterhead or something. But sometimes you'll have to use a different medium, like say an electronic medium. Or these days, social media writing is also a part of it. A lot of us write posts on various social media platforms. So if you look at how these things work, the way you can write on Twitter would be different to, X now. So how you write on that and how you write on Facebook or how you write on Instagram is all going to be different from each other. So medium awareness is what is referred to as adaptability. Your writing should be able to adapt to the medium shifts that you see. Okay. So all of these then become additional features of professional writing these days because people are using everything. How can we not talk about LinkedIn while we are discussing professional writing? So the way people put a post on LinkedIn is going to be very, very different from how they're going to do it elsewhere. right? So having a sense of how the medium works and what the medium demands as a good form of writing is also a part of adaptability, right? You need to change or you need to fit your writing based on what medium you are looking at. Okay, so this is in general about professional writing. Some of the points that you need to understand and identify when you enter the area of professional, right? So, any questions up to now? Anything that you haven't understood or anything that you have to ask from which is different from what we've already discussed? Oh, any quick questions? Many of you are there actually. Okay, right. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. All right. So for today, because, these are, somebody has asked a question. Who comes under custom audience? Yeah, custom audience is who? Selected audience, the ones that you're going to handpick. It could be your group members, right? Say you're working on a project. People who usually know what you're doing, that is your group members, plus say, for example, you're talking to a client, right? So these are people who are called custom audience. So any presentation or something that is not open to everybody, right? You get to participate in those things only by invite. Hmm? In terms of writing, again, certain documents, they're only shared with a few people. Even emails, right? Your emails are specific and customized for only the ones who should receive it. It doesn't go to everybody, right? It's not a social media message. It's more customized, more personalized form of writing when it comes to email and other things, right? That's what custom audience means. Okay. All right. Okay, so if you have understood the basic features, then let's move on to one of the most commonly used form of professional writing, type of professional writer, which are the professional emails, right? Now, emails have been here for so long that almost everyone knows or either knows it or thinks that they know it, okay? But there are certainly some aspects that we may not know or we know but we have overlooked or were overlooking for all this while, but needs correction and fixing as far as professional writing is concerned. Okay. The reason why emails became a professional thing, right? Before emails, what preceded the emails in professional area and otherwise? If you had to communicate, what preceded the emails? No idea? What was the preferred form of written document before this professional emails came to existence? How do you think?
Letters.
Letters, right? Letters were the most commonly used document to communicate things that were professional and confidential in nature. Even today, if the case is to maintain high levels of confidentiality, people still prefer sending in through handwritten letters or, any other forms of letters, if the matter is of high confidentiality, right? But of course, coming back to what we were discussing, letters were the predecessors to these emails. Emails were definitely chosen because it was easy to communicate using the electronic medium, and the biggest reason being that it was the quickest and the cheapest mean to do that, right? Henceforth, there are many, when you discuss the professional aspects or even the writing aspects in emails, you'll see a lot of overlap with formal letters. You'll see that a lot of things that a lot of practices that we have adopted to write formal letters would see itself repeating in formal emails, except for the fact that emails are much shorter than the letters, right? Even formal letters, you remember, right? Back in schools when we were taught to write them, formal letters always had a word limit, which was much lesser than the informal ones. Remember? So in case of emails, it's even shorter than the letters, right? Um, now, what would be some email etiquettes that you need to keep in mind, right? First one would be proper format, and we'll discuss what that is. Checking the recipient's name. This would look like a very silly thing to say, but all of us know that sometime or the other, this thing would have happened to one of us, or maybe some of us at least, right? That you do not check on the recipient's name. You end up sending the mail to the wrong person. And this is a serious problem. This is not just a silly mistake. So at a workplace, when you're doing that, you're also leaking the company confidential affairs to someone who's not a part of your organization, right? You can lose your job over this. So it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not as silly as it sounds. So double checking on your recipient's name is very, very important. Proofreading, very, very important, right? You send a mail that is not proofread properly with all sorts of mistakes, wrong information. Again, the consequences are not going to be very different from what I've mentioned. Emojis, right? Use of emojis these days, because you are more equipped to using WhatsApp messengers or other forms of social media outlets. People are more prone to using emojis, and sometimes more than what you should be using, right? um, but this part, right, a lot of this thing has come about with informal texting, and emojis are usually used when you do not want to, either when you want to express an emotion that you cannot find words for, or when you do not want to say it, right? But both of what I said is not applicable to professional writing. If you're writing professionally, you must say everything that you want to say. There is no easy way out of it. You have to find a way to write everything that you want within the space that is provided to you. There is no option of not writing a part of it, right? Because clarity is a significant element for professional writing, right? Emojis, hence, are not something that is preferred in professional writing. And we don't ask to not use images just because it doesn't look formal. Okay, the reason is far more important than the part that emojis are not formal. The reason also being that emojis can be ambiguous, right? People can interpret different things from an emoji. People can contest. It can be disputed later that maybe, I felt this way. But that's not with words. At least words that are formal in nature. Next thing is shorthand, right? We sometimes have a habit of using abbreviations that are not universal, okay? Abbreviations that not everybody understands. Shorthands, something that we invent for ourselves in order to keep up with the pace of what is being said or written. These things, again, are not allowed in general, but in certain specific circumstances. For example, say it's an email that you have sent to your colleague, right? So your colleague can understand because you're from the same team, and some of the short forms and abbreviations you use probably something that you shared language, so it is okay. This kind of emails would still be considered only semi-formal. But if it's a strictly formal email, then even the use of shorthand is not allowed. So you should stay away from doing that in order to avoid any sort of confusions. Short specific subject lines. Subject lines are compulsory part for all professional emails. You cannot send off an email to anybody without having written a proper subject line. Right? We'll discuss more on that and how to write a professional subject line also once we get into the content part of email. Then conciseness, appropriate salutations, appropriate writing tone, right? Formal tone. Responding to emails promptly. Now, this again is a very important thing. What do you think would be the average time that you can take to respond to emails at workplace? If you work already, usually what is the time you take to respond to emails at workplace?
1 to 2 hours.
1 to 2 hours is the best thing. But how long do you think you can sleep over it? Any idea? So 24 hours, right? The maximum you spent to reply to an email at workplace should not be more than 24 hours. Now you can ask the question, what if I don't know how to respond to the question being asked in the email, right? Sometimes you're asked to reply, to give a reply to something. Could be the case that you do not know, right? Or maybe say you take more time than 24 hours to respond to it. What do you do instead? You send them an interim email. What's an interim email? This is the kind of emails which usually people send to ask or buy additional, right? So I do not know the answer. I cannot reply to the question immediately. So you instead write to them an interim email asking them for permission for more time so that you can reply properly to them. But not
Ma'am,
responding
your
for
voice
days
is
together.
cracking in between.
Sorry?
Ma'am, your voice is cracking in between.
Is that the case for others as well?
Yes, ma'am. Sometimes it's cracking.
Sometimes it's cracking. Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it's
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay. So, not responding for days together, no matter what your reason could be valid, right? Like, I don't know the response, but not responding for days together is not an option. It's not considered a good email etiquette at all. If you do not know the answer, then, or if you do not know how to reply to it, till the time you can figure out what has to be done, you definitely have to send the concerned person an interim email saying that you will get back to them in some time. Okay. And that sometime also cannot be more than say 2 to 3 days. Do not just keep them waiting for, weeks and months together. All of this would be counted as thoroughly unprofessional, right? Then the last one, again, very important. Avoid responding to emails if angry or non-composed, right? What does that mean? You can be triggered, right? Workplace is a very triggering environment. There can be all kind of things happening there. You may not like somebody at all. Somebody would have really done something bad to you. But composure is very, very important, especially when you are shooting a mail to somebody, because this is written record, right? It's not like how you say things to each other, right? There's no record to it. These days, even that's possible. Somebody records what you're saying on a phone, you can run into trouble. But particularly with written documents, since it is documented, since it is recorded, and it is always available for an inquiry or for a scrutiny later, one should be really, really careful what you're writing down. Okay, no matter what it is, you need to take your own time to come out of whatever bad mood you are in, then sit and compose an email to address your grievance. Asking somebody to address your grievance, or you yourself filing a complaint, whatever it is, right? So these are common things, but then the way you write, hence they may also be taken into consideration while you look for email etiquettes. Okay. Anything you have not understood here? These are all pretty straightforward things. I do not think that these aren't things that you do not know already. But anything that you did not really understand? Are we good? Okay, so now we get into this part on the contents of a professional email. So any professional email is definitely going to carry these 8 fields within them, right? All of which are compulsory, right? All of these 8 are compulsory, except maybe the last one, attachment and enclosures. Now, this is only applicable for emails which needs to have them, right? But rest of the 7, the first one,
Ma'am,
subject line.
Ma'am, can you repeat last point? Ma'am,
Last point.
yes, ma'am.
Last point was what? I was talking about attachment and enclosures. Okay, this is only applicable to emails which would need an attachment. Not all professional emails will have an attachment, but the one that has it definitely has to be ensured that the enclosures or attachments are in place. These days, okay, I'll come to that in a while. But because we are talking about it, let me talk it right away. Attachment is the word that you use these days, right? Enclosures were actually from the time when we used to send in letters, right? Whenever
No, ma'am. I'm
the
not talking about yet point. Previous one.
Which was the previous one?
Ma'am, previous slide. In previous line.
What was there in the previous slide? This one, etiquettes. Which part
Yes,
are you
ma'am.
referring to?
Ma'am, avoid responding to email if
Avoid responding to emails if you're angry. That's all. So take your time, cool off, and then
Okay.
think about properly what you want to write, draft it, and then send it off. Okay. Do not write when you're angry is what it means. That's all. Think more.
okay.
Okay. Right. So the first part here, obviously for all professional emails, I already mentioned this subject line, right? You need to write down a professional subject line. This is a compulsory part of all professional emails. You cannot send in any professional emails without a proper subject line. Second, followed by greetings, which is also called the salutations, right? We'll see each one of them separately. Don't worry about it. For the moment, just understand what are the contents required. Purpose. Now, from here onwards, from the third point onwards, begins your what we refer to as the body of the email. So, subject line done. It's a separate field in your email. Within the main body, that is in the main template, what you have is the greetings. You begin with the greetings or salutations. The next first line that you write in the body of the email is the purpose statement. So what does that mean? In any professional email, the first line has to be the purpose line, which answers the question, what are you writing this email for? This will be the first sentence in any of your professional email, followed by the details of the purpose that you're writing for, which would be followed by the closing remarks. What do you mean by closing remarks? Anyone who can comment on that? Can you give me an example, like give me an example of a sentence which is a closing remark? Have you seen sentences
Warm
like,
regards, something like that.
sorry?
Warm regards or respect,
That
something
is the
like that.
next thing. That is the complimentary close. Have you heard sentences like, I look forward to meeting with you?
Waiting for your reply.
Sorry?
Waiting for your reply. Such a
Waiting for your reply. Yes. So that kind of sentences, right? I look forward to meeting with you. I look forward to hearing from you soon, right? These kind of sentences are called. We'll look at in detail, what is the purpose of writing closing remarks and else. But to give you an example, this is what closing remarks mean. Okay, these kind of sentences. So, which means the body of your email is going to have maximum of 3 to 4 sentences. Now, where does that additional sentence comes from? In the details part. Sometimes you might have to write, 1 or 2 things there, which is why 4 sentences. First line, the purpose sentence. Second, the details. If you want to add more details, 1 more sentence you add there. And then the last line of all professional emails is going to be the closing remarks, right? This is all. This is all the body of this is all the matter of your professional email is going to take up. Nothing more than that, right? Followed by which you're going to have the complimentary close. He was talking about this, no? Warm regards, best wishes, or sincerely, okay? Kind regards. These are what are referred to as the complimentary close. This is also a very, very important part in all professional emails. You cannot finish off or send in an email without these things. Complimentary close and signature. Signature would be what? Your name, if you're working in a company, your designation, and the address of the company. If required, your contact details, right? Contact details is usually, it's optional, but your name, your designation, and where you work, these things, or if you're a student, the name of your college, all of this compulsory. This constitutes the signature, right? Some people these days, they also include their social media handles in signature part. Okay, professional email, then they might send in a LinkedIn, link. Initially, people used to send in their Facebook. It depends, right? If you're doing, say, in the sales, then you might want to share your Instagram or your Facebook ID over your LinkedIn ID. So that depends. Not everybody has to do that, but say if you think that it is going to improve your communication with the other person better, then you can do that. Only if it is required, right? All of that becomes a part of the signature. But what is very, very important in the signature is the name, designation, and the name of the organization, right? Attachment and enclosures optional. If you require, you need to add them. This is also one thing. Double check if you have put in your attachment. These days, Gmail reminds you if you have not sent in the attachment, if you not attached it. But even otherwise, it's a good practice to check if you have did it properly, right? Now about this attachment and enclosures. Enclosures is not the name we use today. Now in email, it's mostly attachment. Enclosures were from the time when we used to send letters, right? Enclosed with this letter. Usually the letter used to have this last line. Even today, if you're sending, say, something like a cover letter to the company during your job interview, usually people write this. Please find enclosed the following documents along with this letter. So enclosures are usually, this is the term you use for letters, attachment for emails. Okay. Now what you see there at the end, for emails of inquiry. So for example, if you're sending an email to inquire about something, thank the sender before giving your response. So when you begin the response email to the next person who has asked you a question, has sent in an inquiry, the first line is always, instead of the purpose statement, the first line is always thanking the person for reaching out to you. Okay, so these are certain differences that you'll see and some conventions of writing. We'll see some scenarios of email so you'll understand it better. Okay. Now, in addition to this, what other features would you see in professional email? Professional tone and language, right? This again requires discussion. So we'll do that while you're doing the activity when you're going to write down the email, right? But in general, what it would be, it is going to be formal in nature, right? Clear call to action. Now, I already discussed this with you. All forms of professional writing is action-oriented writing. You basically are writing it so that somebody can take some action on something, right? Whether that's a report, whether that's an email, whether that's a memo or a circular or some other kind of papers, okay? All of that includes some elements of action, okay? Some kind of persuasiveness associated with it. So call for action needs to be specifically mentioned in all the professional writing, especially the emails. And the last part, politeness and respect, right? Politeness in your language is also a very important part in professional emails, right? So your salutation, your complimentary close should all reflect this aspect of politeness in writing, right? I see some question here. On which side of the page we write the greeting? We are talking about emails, no, Urvashi? So there is nothing called writing on left or right side, right? How do we usually write? Everything anyway begins from the left only, right? In emails. If you're asking about letters, then long back it was already decided that we're going to follow the left to right writing pattern, right? In email anyway, that doesn't matter. Okay. Maybe one more of this and then one or two of these slides and then we can wind up for today. Now, about professional tone and language, right? This one, see this slide. What were the additional features of professional email? First one, professional tone and language. What do we mean by that? This. What do we mean by professional tone and language? Professional tone and language is basically formal language. And by which, what do we mean? Language that is less personal. You give me examples of personal language. No?
Using hey, hi.
Correct, right? So these kinds of expressions usually are reserved for more informal situations, like with friends and relatives, etc., which is also the next point, right? But in professional system, you have a different kind of language altogether which you use, right? Known as the impersonal form or the objective form of language, right? Or more generally known as the formal form of language. So personal will include all these kind of expression, hey, hi, how do you do, what you're doing. Generally, exchanging pleasantries is not something that is allowed in emails, right? Whoever you're writing to, say you're writing to a client, there's no need of asking how you're doing and what are you doing and all that, right? You can come straight to the purpose, right? Especially when writing to strangers, pleasantries is not something that is considered very pleasant, right? Shouldn't use that at all. You come straight to your point, you make your point, and then whatever politeness you want to show, that should be shown in the language that you're using to write that email. You don't have to show any additional, add any additional elements in that in order to make it polite, right? Objective tone. Objective tone. Let's look at the next, you'll understand it better, right? Now, objective tone, you cannot achieve in writing if you're going to use these things, right? What are they? The first one, group jargons. Group jargons refers to shared language that you use among your team members. So for example, see, we have something called a QPT, right? That works. Now, QP team is the team that works on question papers. People who work in that group or people who are generally part of this organization, some of them will know that this is what QP team is. But if I am talking, say I'm sending an email to somebody who's outside my organization and I use something like a QP team in my email, right? To say, for example, they need some information and I have to tell them that for that you need to write to the QP team. And I write a sentence like, for further information, please write a mail to the QP team. What has that person, to make of what QP team is? Right? Why? Because it's a shared language. The other person doesn't have access to that shared language you use within your organization. Right? So this is called group jargons. Right? Something that isn't a term or a phrase that is inaccessible to people who are outside your organization. Right? So using group jargons then make your writing informal. It can make your tone lose objectivity and impersonality. Okay. Did you understand that part? What group jargon mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next thing is slangs, idiomatic expressions, colloquialism. Can you please read those examples on the screen? The first one, right? Very informal. What does it mean? Y'all. Basically is you all. ASAP. These days a very common word that you find everywhere. ASAP. Send in the document ASAP. Please assemble in the lounge ASAP. Right? Some other idiomatic expressions and slangs. Colloquialism. So these are some of the Tamil words that you can identify. Macha, Semma, Akka, Anna, right? So you're writing an email, you don't say dear Akka, or dear Bhaiya or anything like that. Maybe you share that relationship with the person, but in the office or in the workplace, this person is a colleague, right? And you address them either by their first name or other more formal terms, but not your slangs or your colloquialism, right? Another one is yo or YOLO, right? All of these terms definitely not allowed in any of the professional emails, even if you're writing to somebody who you are friends with otherwise, right? You may be very good friends. You may know each other from a very long time. But in the professional zone, when you're writing down emails to people, they are your colleagues. So all aspects of formality needs to be preserved while you're writing. Okay? None of these slangs, colloquialisms, idiomatic expressions, none of them should be used. Third point, stereotypical and biased language. Now, some examples are that mankind, manpower, chairman, man-made. Probably these words are not used anymore. It's a kind of not allowed in professional spaces. ASAP means what, Urushi? As soon as possible. It's a short form for that. ASAP. Okay. Yeah. So what's the problem with these set of words? Mankind, manpower, chairman, man-made. This only reflects one kind of stereotype and biased language. There are more to this. But what is this? Mankind, manpower, chairman, man-made.
Gender stereotype.
Yeah, gender bias, right? Gender bias, mankind. What could you say instead of mankind? Human being.
Humankind.
Humankind or
Human.
human beings simply, right? Instead of mankind. Manpower, this is a
Human
job
power.
that requires human resource, right? Human resource. Even human resource is contested these days, but okay, at least we have gotten rid of the gender bias. Chairman, what can you replace it with?
Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Chairperson or simply chair. You can say the chair of the meeting or chairperson or head. Okay, simply chair would also do. Man-made,
Human made.
human-made, or another word you use is synthetic. Right? Something that is man-made is also considered synthetic, right? So the point here is that you need to get rid of any biases that can creep in while you're writing, right? We have only discussed one aspect, which is the gender, right? But there are many more that you can talk about. Like you can talk about other social labels and all the international documents, all the international organizations are very, very strict about these writing conventions, right? Uh, so it's always nice to read through the manual of where you're writing and see what policies they have about, especially stereotypical language and biased language. Most of them have the same thing, but you need to also additionally check in on what other points they have mentioned, right? Next one is informal phrasal verbs. Look at those examples there. Ask out, duck out of, lie down. What can you replace these phrasal verbs with? What does ask out mean? If you have to convert it into formal vocabulary. But invite, right? So instead of writing ask out is an extremely informal word. It's mostly like an informal conversational language. In professional emails, you don't write like this. I ask out to come, I ask out you to come for a lecture to my college is not how you're going to write. You say, I invite you for delivering a lecture on semiconductors and future, etc., whatever it is, right? Duck off. This is also an informal usage. This is the informal word used instead of the formal verb avoid, right? Avoid. Lie down, recline, right? Recline. So there are a set of words like this that are considered formal enough for your professional writing. So this also needs to be checked. Okay. Contractions. I'll, you, she is, right? What would you write it as? I will, you have, she is or she has or she was, whatever that apostrophe stands for, right? So no short forms of this should be used in the formal writing as well, right? In emails, you still may be allowed to do this a little bit, given it's also, even if it's a professional form of communication, it's also a one-on-one, more person-to-person sort of a communication medium. So maybe there you won't find this as a problematic part, this one particularly. But in more formal documents like a report or say something more like a memo or a circular or MOM, the minutes and all that, this needs to be avoided. Emails would still be okay with some of this. All right. Any questions here? In speaking formally, speaking is different. No, we are not discussing about that. Speaking, or obviously, you use what we call a spontaneous speech. It's not a problem at all. In writing, we cannot do this. What is lie down? Lie down means to recline. Okay, so what is the meaning of all of the rest of slangs? Okay. Macha would be something like a brother. Sema is good. The slang used, the colloquial word used for good, something that is good, something that looks extremely good or extraordinary. Akka and are all kinship terms that people use in Tamil, right? So these are things that we see at workplaces while we get emails from people. So I have included them. There could be more that you have seen, but the ones that I have used here are ones that I have seen in the emails. Macha is something like a brother. Okay, somebody. It's again a youth slang that people use for each other. Here, young people, they call each other macha, which means brother. Okay. Yes, it is in Tamil. Correct. Okay, so I'll stop here. Next class we start off with this exercises that we have for checking some of these aspects, particularly the formality aspects and the structure and content. We'll do 2 of this next week and then continue with the rest of the part of email writing, okay? Because we need to discuss all of these, the subject line, greetings, purpose, all of it has certain codes on how you can write, how you can make it better. So we'll discuss the remaining part and we'll also do this exercises next week, okay? Today, because we have started, we spent some time talking about this. So otherwise, every week we'll definitely have some kind of activity based on what we discuss for that session, okay? All right, so thank you so much for joining in and to follow this up next coming up with Learn the Rope for English too, okay? I hope to meet you there as well. So thank you for coming to the session. I hope you gain something of it. And if you wish to continue, please be here for the next sessions and the following ones as well. Okay. Schedule would be same, Urvashi, 5 to 6, unless of course informed otherwise. If there's any change, then it would be communicated to you. But otherwise, the slot is 5 to 6 for this. Okay. Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, right? Yes. Tuesday, 5 to 6. All right. See you everyone then. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.